Okay, so I really struggled with whether I should make this video or not, but basically a couple weeks ago, Bobby and I found out that we both had COVID. And I started feeling better last week, so I made a bunch of videos last week, and I didn't really address it in those videos, except for at the beginning of the Hunger Games one, because I felt like my whole world revolved around COVID for a solid week, and I think I just wanted to not think or talk about it for a little bit, and just make my normal, happy, entertaining content. But I started realizing from last week's videos that a lot of you guys either didn't know that I was sick and had COVID and were concerned, or I was getting a bunch of questions asking how I was, how the baby is. Oh yeah, if this is your first time watching me, I'm also pregnant, double whammy. How Bobby's doing. I had friends asking me questions about the whole experience, and I realized maybe this video was actually pretty important for me to make. And hopefully it'll either help somebody who's either going through this or worried about going through this, or at the very least, it'll ease all of your guys' minds that we're doing okay. So I asked you guys on Twitter and Instagram if I should make this video and if you guys had specific questions for me to answer just so I don't miss anything. A lot of the questions were the same, so I narrowed down ones that were asked the most, and I'm gonna try to address things in the order that they have happened. Okay, so first question, what were some of the first symptoms you got? I wanna answer this first because this is one of the first questions anybody has asked me after they found out that we tested positive for COVID. And everybody's experience is different. I'm gonna go through mine and Bobby's so that you understand the two different sides of people who had it. Bobby started experiencing symptoms probably 2 days before me, but they were very mild and basically mimicked a sinus infection, which he gets a lot. So we didn't think anything of it. And his symptoms never really changed from that. It seemed like he was more tired than normal some of the days, but for the most part, he just felt like he had a sinus infection. I, on the other hand, went through a couple different things. So the very first symptom that I felt was a scratchy throat. Not a sore throat, just that little tickle that you sometimes get in your throat before you're about to have allergies or a cold. Sometimes I get it if I talk too much during a live stream or a video. So again, didn't think anything of it because I otherwise felt fine. It wasn't until the next day that my symptoms started getting more diverse, which is the next question. Did you have many symptoms? Yes, it was a roller coaster for me. And I don't know if that's because I'm pregnant, but basically I went from having a scratchy throat to the next day having a scratchy throat and congestion and thinking that I had a cold, like just a bad cold that I needed to rest and just get over. The next day, I started feeling like I was having a bad cold mixed with a mild flu. I had congestion, I had body aches, I had a low-grade fever. It never got more than 99.4, I think was the highest mine got. Didn't ever reach an actual fever. I felt super tired. I had 2 instances where I mildly felt nauseous, and I slept a good chunk of the day. That was my worst day by far. The next day after that, so I'd say I had 3 solid days of feeling like I just wanted to be on the couch. The day after that, I got a little better. I still had a low-grade fever, like 99. I still had mild body aches, but not as bad. But otherwise, I just felt a little bit better than the day before. And then after those 3 days, by the 4th day, I felt much better. I wasn't well. I wasn't feeling healthy, but I was definitely not feeling as horrible as I was those 3 days. I probably felt like that for maybe another 2 days. So maybe a total of 5 days of trying to rest as much as possible and take care of myself before I started feeling like I could get up and kind of have a normal routine again. By the 4th day was when I lost my taste and smell. I'll talk about that more later because there's more specific questions on that. And then the second week of recovery, which was this past week, I still felt like I had lingering things, like my energy levels still weren't where they should be. I felt this tightness in my chest a little bit, which I get after having bad colds for a couple days. The taste and smell was still gone. And now I'm going on to week 3, and pretty much everything's back to normal for the most part. I never had problems breathing, thank God. I never had a high fever, thank God. I got a minor cough toward the end of the first week, but it was very minor and it came on usually at night or if I was laying down, and that was about it. These 2 questions from the same person were similar, so I put them together. Did you know that you had it, or did you not suspect it at all? How long did it take you to realize you needed to go in, I'm assuming, to get tested? Okay, so like I said in the beginning, I thought Bobby had a sinus infection, and I got a little bit nervous when I started feeling like I was getting sick because I thought that was very coincidental and weird. But again, the symptoms didn't seem that bad in the first day. So I was like, oh, maybe we both just caught a cold. So yeah, I had the thought that maybe it would be COVID, but I wasn't 100% sure. And then I remembered that my sister and her whole family had just gone through having COVID, and 2 of them were pretty much asymptomatic and 2 of them were not. So I decided to ask her what her symptoms were, because I was like, I don't have a fever, so it's not COVID. Like, I just kept saying in my head, I was like, I don't have this, so it's not, I don't have a cough, so it's not COVID. I don't have a fever, it's not COVID. Bobby and I, neither of us had either of those symptoms, which were like the main things we had heard about. We hadn't lost taste and smell at that point, so I was like, it can't be it. So I asked my sister, and I texted her, and I said, hey, like, I'm starting to feel sick. This is how I'm feeling. I don't have these things though. What did you have? Is it similar? And right away she wrote back and said she had the exact same symptoms pretty much. And I think that's when I kind of became more worried that it might be something else. Her friend that had it, and my niece all had slightly different symptoms, but none of them really had a fever. They all thought it was a cold, which this all sounds very familiar. None of them really got that cough or trouble breathing, and only my niece lost taste and smell. The others didn't. So during the first full day of feeling sick, after I had heard that from her, I told Bobby, I think we need to schedule to go get tested. Especially being pregnant, like, I need to know if that's what this is so that my doctors can tell me what I need to do, and I can figure this out. But basically the first day I was sick was a Sunday, and the first appointment I could get to go get tested wasn't until Wednesday, which I guess was good because I started finally feeling good enough to get off the couch on Wednesday to go get tested. But also while waiting for the test, we found out that Bobby's brother also was starting to have symptoms, who we had seen during Christmas. He went and got a rapid test like the same day, and his came back positive. So we were pretty sure that it was very unlikely that we all had the same symptoms and were with each other, but we didn't have it. So after I think we found out his brother had it was when it really set in that, okay, this is probably what it is. So we went and got tested on a Wednesday, and we got results the morning of New Year's Day, the first day of 2021. That morning at like 9 a.m. we got a text saying we were positive. And I do want to say the testing process was way easier than I thought it was going to be. It stinks that it takes that long to go get tested and then get a result. But at the same time, if you're having symptoms, you shouldn't be leaving the house and being around people anyway. But we went to like one of the CVS drive-up ones because I wanted to make sure we didn't go to a place that we were around other people who might have COVID in case we didn't, even though it didn't matter. We were one of those people. On TikTok, they always showed you the people that would come in through the window with the giant cotton swab that they would like jam up your nose. So I was terrified to go, but you literally do it yourself. It's not painful or stressful at all. They like talk you through it from the window, and you have to like do the nose swab, but you do it yourself with these little ones that you don't have to do so high. So I will say, if you feel like you need to get tested but you're worried about the actual test, don't be. Go to CVS's drive-through. It's painless, it's quick, you can make a reservation online. That is one thing that I wanted to tell you guys because I was unaware of that because this was my first time getting tested. Were there any symptoms that you didn't know if they were COVID or pregnancy related? No. People were saying, I first said that I wasn't feeling well, and that's why I was gonna have videos delayed because I didn't know what was going on at that point. And people were like, it's probably just being pregnant. And I'm like, no. A lot of you have never been pregnant, I'm assuming, but especially in your second trimester, that's like the honeymoon period. You don't really have that much most people don't have that many bad symptoms going on. Pregnancy for me, I've been very lucky. I have felt very normal. But I had to like drill it into people like, no, pregnancy can cause you to be a little bit congested, but it doesn't cause you to feel like you have the flu usually, or a cold, or that you can't get out of bed, especially in the second trimester. By the second trimester, you kind of know your body at that point and like what pregnancy does to it and what it feels like. So no, I never had a symptom that I confused with a pregnancy symptom. They were very, very, very different. What was your first reaction when you found out that you had COVID? I think we already kind of knew at that point that it was gonna come back positive, especially because Bobby's brother had tested already. day and came back positive. We just figured there's no way it's anything else because we were all together and we have similar symptoms. I just think that it's so ironic that everybody was talking about how 2021 is going to be great. This year's going to be different and like the vaccine's coming out. And then of course, like the day the new year starts, we find out that we tested positive for COVID. But also I'm kind of happy that we didn't get the results until that much later, because by the time we got the result, we had basically been feeling better for a couple days. I feel like if I would have known that it was COVID while I was at my sickest, I may have been freaking out more, not knowing if it was going to get worse or better or what was going to happen. But because we already had gotten better and we weren't experiencing any of these severe symptoms that you can sometimes have, I think it was better finding out that much later, if that makes sense, for stress purposes. And going along with that says, how scared were you for yourself and your baby? We were very scared. Once we started feeling better, if I wasn't pregnant, I think I would have been like, yeah, like we did it. Like, not we did it, but like we got through it and we didn't have to go to the hospital, and I feel so fortunate. But because I was pregnant, we were both very nervous about the baby because you can't just like check the baby and make sure it's fine. I think the scariest part was trying to make sure I didn't get a fever, because I know even without COVID, if you're pregnant and you have a fever, like that can be very dangerous to the development of the baby. The fever and the trouble breathing, because you want to make sure that your baby's getting enough oxygen and you're breathing correctly for the baby. So those were the two things I think we were the most scared that I was going to have problems with. I was trying to come from a positive standpoint of being like, I didn't experience the severe symptoms. I'm sure everything's fine. I was researching a bunch. It both scared and helped a lot, learning information and trying to calm myself down. But I knew for the most part, it was just as bad to make myself stressed. Like, it was just as bad for the baby as being sick. So I just tried to stay in this positive, calm mindset as much as possible. But yes, of course, it was very scary. It's still very scary to not know like how this can affect things, and I'll get into that after. Next question, did you feel any sense of anxiety, guilt, like as if you had not done enough to protect yourself? Of course. Bobby definitely was feeling the worst because he started getting symptoms first out of us. So I think in his head, he thought that he was the one that gave it to us somehow, like me and his brother, and he wasn't sure about his parents because we were with his parents too. I felt maybe slightly like I had guilt about getting it, but then I started realizing like, no, we literally have been doing everything that we can to be as safe as possible. I've been wearing masks all the time, as much as possible. I've been hand sanitizing like crazy. We haven't been seeing friends. We haven't been going shopping. We haven't been going out. We've been going to appointments, but I've been trying to only do ones that I thought were important to either work or my health and the baby's health. So like doctor's appointments, prenatal massages, which also helps with like blood flow and circulation. It's important. Human nature, like you're gonna feel a little bit guilty. Like, what could I have done to stop this? But like we both thought we were doing everything right and we still got it. And I know that's probably scary. You'd probably rather be like, yeah, like we weren't being as cautious as we possibly could. But like, because I'm pregnant, we were trying to be as cautious as possible, and it still happened. Which leads to the next question. How'd you get it? We don't know. And I feel like if we would know, it wouldn't be as scary and terrible. We actually got, when you have a positive test, your township or your state will has like a health department that will reach out to you for contact tracing. And basically they gather as much info as they can just for their records and to try and help people in the future with this. So they asked like what our symptoms were, and they asked if we knew who we had been in contact with who had COVID. He was like, you know what? Like the majority of people don't know where they got it, which is terrifying. Nobody else besides his brother, who got symptoms a couple days after we got symptoms. So I don't know how it works. I don't know if it's possible that he had it before and then we all got it from him, or if that's not possible because our symptoms started first, so then he got it from us. We've tried so hard to figure out where this came, like where it stemmed from, who we might have been in contact with, and every time we think we narrow it down, we think about it and we're like, that doesn't make any sense though, or like, that's so unlikely. So yeah, we don't know, and I kind of wish we did, because at least we would kind of know going forward how to not get it again or how to give advice to somebody. The contact tracing person said, based on when my symptoms started, that they pinpointed me being exposed to it on the 24th, so on Christmas Eve. So is it possible that we could have gotten it from some of the family that came over? Very. Is it possible you got it from somebody whose appointment we went to that week? I had an ultrasound that week. We worked out that week with a trainer. Yes. But we've tried. We contacted everybody to see if they or anybody else had symptoms that they know, and nothing. We can't find where it started, which is so frustrating, but we've kind of given up at this point. Luckily, our symptoms started very quickly after Christmas, so we weren't around anybody to have passed it on besides Bobby's family that we saw on Christmas, but at least they know, and then they also had symptoms pretty quickly, so they weren't around anybody else either. So that's the one silver lining, I guess, that hopefully it stopped with us. How difficult was it to not have a sense of smell or taste? Out of the minor symptoms, the loss of smell and taste is definitely one of the weirdest. I had heard, obviously, that people lost their smell and taste with COVID. You know when your taste kind of gets muted when you're sick and you're congested? I was picturing it like that. No. It's so much worse. It's like I was literally eating chili powder, garlic, like full on hot sauce, nothing. And it basically takes away your appetite, because when you can't taste or smell something, it just takes away your incentive to eat completely. So I basically just had to force myself to eat. Especially being pregnant, I knew I needed to eat a specific amount at specific times to stay healthy. One of the nights, I literally just threw spinach and fruit and all this healthy stuff into a blender and then just drank it like a smoothie, because I was like, I can't taste anything. I might as well just like supercharge my system. It was weird. It was like the only thing you could kind of enjoy was textures. So we tried to like find things that had a fun texture, a nice texture. I don't know. How long did it take to start recovering your sense of smell and taste after you lost them? Also, did you lose those senses gradually, or did it happen really fast? For me, it happened very fast. I went from being like, ooh, I didn't lose my smell and taste, I must be lucky, to all of a sudden, uh-oh, I don't think I can smell or taste anything. Right now I'm going on to week 3, and I'd say my taste is pretty much back to like 75%. My smell, maybe at like 30 or 40, my smell's a little behind. It took a solid 2 weeks, I'd say, though, to get back to maybe like 40% taste. And I heard that it could take up to a month or even longer to get back everything. There's certain foods I can really taste, and then most foods I'm like in that 75% range, and then some I can like barely taste still. And smells, I have to get really close to something to smell it, but I can finally like start kind of smelling things. Oh, my good friend Cassie asks 3 questions. 1, how bad was it compared to other times you were sick? That's what was weird. I've been that sick before. It wasn't like I thought I was dying at any point or that I would have to go to the hospital. I was more so worried about my fever going up. Being pregnant, you can't take whatever medicine you want. I basically was not supposed to be taking anything. So I couldn't take like NyQuil, DayQuil. I couldn't take any sort of thing that might make me feel better, whereas Bobby could because he wasn't pregnant. The only thing I was allowed to take was Tylenol, only if I had an actual fever, which I never got up to, so I never got to actually take Tylenol. So I think it felt a little worse because of that, because I've never been sick and not been able to take something to help that. Second question, did any foods taste hella weird or hella good when your taste buds were acting up? Right at the start, when I couldn't really taste, the first things I could kind of start tasting, so I ate a lot of them because it was like the only thing I could taste was pickles, lemons. So I was squeezing lemon in like my water. I was squeezing it on avocado to put on toast because I would like taste that a little bit. Sour things. Those Sweet Smart candies, the sour ones, I could taste those, were one of the first things that came back. Hot sauces, I still like the flavor of hot sauces, I still can't really taste. You could feel the like spice in the back of your throat, so that's why Bobby was eating a lot of spicy things. But I don't like that. Like, that's the one thing about spice. I like the flavor of spice, but not that terrible feeling. So it kind of just took away the only thing I liked about spicy stuff. So I wasn't having that. But yeah, those were like the 3 things that I really could taste from the start. So I literally was putting pickles and lemon on everything. It was weird. Chocolate and the whipped cream both kind of have this chalk taste to me still. So hopefully that comes back eventually. But yeah, those are probably the weirdest ones. And then she said, any random advice regarding having COVID? Don't assume that you have a cold. Like, I don't want to freak people out, but I 100% in the beginning thought it was a cold. And I think if I never got sick, I don't even know if Bobby would have went and got tested, because he would have just thought he had one of his normal sinus infections. But that's like the one thing I hear from people. They're like, I thought it was a cold. I thought it was a sinus infection. If anything, if for some reason you can't go get tested, please just self-quarantine then, because there is a chance that you have it. You're not always gonna feel like you're dying when you have it. That's why I feel like I told Bobby after this whole experience, I feel like the number of how many people actually have or had COVID is way higher than what is being reported, because the only people that they're counting are the ones that actually decided to go in and go get the test. Next question, did you have any pre-existing physical conditions, especially respiratory? That's why I'm asking, because I'm asthmatic and worried. Do you think that made it worse for you? So technically, being pregnant was considered a pre-existing condition. In the beginning of the virus, all I was reading was that pregnant women were more susceptible to going to the hospital if they get COVID, so that freaked me out a lot. That pregnant women were more likely to get very ill from it or even die from it. Recently, in the past couple months, when I was researching it before I even had it to try and ease my mind, they were finding that there was no real link between having severe symptoms and being pregnant. They said that the biggest link was having a pre-existing condition, not pregnancy. So asthma, diabetes, being overweight, like severely overweight, having heart problems, all of those things were definitely more of a risk factor than being pregnant. Being pregnant and not knowing, like they weren't 100% sure if that was something that was going to make you have worse symptoms or not, was definitely something scary. But I guess if you are pregnant, just know that I was. When I had it, I was 21 weeks going on 22 weeks, so I was in my second trimester, and I never had severe symptoms. It was not fun. It felt horrible, but I never had like severe life-threatening symptoms. I never felt like I had to go to the hospital. My doctor was never worried about me after he heard my symptoms. That having been said, I do personally know some people who had pre-existing conditions like asthma, diabetes, had a heart problem. Luckily, they were okay, but they did have to go to the hospital because they were having more severe symptoms. So definitely, if you have a pre-existing condition, be as cautious as you possibly can. Even having gone through it and not had it as severe as some people have said, it's still no joke for a lot of people. And knowing how stressed and upset and worried I was, especially being pregnant, going through it, I wouldn't want anybody else to have to go through that. It was a horrible experience. It was a horrible week. It was horrible. Okay, now moving on to the baby part. Does having COVID affect the baby in any way? This might not be the answer that you're hoping for, but nobody really knows. There's a lot of studies being done right now. There just hasn't been enough time that has passed. However, from women who have had COVID toward the beginning of this and then now have had their babies, the majority of babies are completely fine. Even the ones that are born with an issue, they can't connect that issue with COVID. As of now, they don't see any evidence that COVID can go to the baby, so that's reassuring. They just started finding evidence that there may be potential for COVID to get to the placenta, but they said it's very rare. COVID doesn't have any evidence that it's affected babies, so that's very reassuring. Do you know if the baby will have immunity to the virus? They originally said usually when you get antibodies or you have antibodies in your body, they pass on to the baby. I think the last thing I read was that there was evidence that those antibodies don't pass on to the baby, which I guess would make sense if COVID doesn't even technically, there's no evidence of it going to the baby. So no, most likely the baby will not be immune. And that's why leading up to my delivery and probably at least the first couple months that the baby's around, we are going to be keeping a very tight bubble of who's going to be allowed around the baby just to keep the baby safe. In short, we don't know, but it seems like the answer is probably no. The baby would not be immune to the virus. Is there a specific treatment or routine for pregnant women that you had to do? So as of now, I have not seen my doctor. I was supposed to see my doctor the Monday after I was getting symptoms. Obviously, I was not allowed to go in because I was in this COVID contagion period where you can't be around people for 2 weeks. It's supposed to be 2 weeks from your first symptoms, which I'm past right now. But just to be safe, my doctor asked for me to come in 2 weeks after I went to go get tested because that's when they know that I was definitely positive. So 2 weeks from there will be this Wednesday. So once this video goes out after I'm going to the doctor, I have talked to them on the phone after telling them my symptoms. They don't seem too worried about it. I have heard some pregnant women have to go on blood thinners. I'm really hoping I don't have to. I feel like they would have told me to start taking baby aspirin or something by now. But yeah, basically their only advice was let them know if I had a fever and let them know if I had trouble breathing. Those were the two biggest things they were most worried about for the baby's health. And I luckily did not have any of those. It stinks that I can't go see my doctor. I've been very stressed about hopefully not having any other issues or like infections or anything because I don't know what to do while I'm in this quarantine period because I can't go see my doctor. But I'm filming this Monday. I only have a day and a half to get through and then I can finally see my doctor and make sure everything is good, but I'm sure that it is. Did anything change in how your baby was heartbeat kicking? Okay, so I hadn't felt movement or anything, like kicking movement. I hadn't really felt any strong ones before COVID. After I had felt better from it, I was nervous because I was like, there's no way for me to tell if the baby's okay because I haven't been feeling anything yet. It's still early. I'm not gonna go into it, but like my placenta's in a different place. It's totally normal and fine, and a lot of women have it, but it makes it harder for you to feel the baby's kicks until later. You usually feel them later than most people. So I was in that category already, which I knew. So I was trying not to freak out too much, but I bought online, I wish I brought it down here. I bought online just to make myself feel better, a baby Doppler, which is what they use at the doctor's office to just hear the heartbeat. Give yourself some reassurance that the baby's fine and she's there and she's doing okay. So I did buy one of those, but before the Doppler came, I actually started feeling movements for the first time, which was very exciting, especially right after going through COVID and being very stressed out and scared for the baby. Having her start kicking, like, so nice and so reassuring and like made it even more exciting. So I have been feeling like movement and stuff going on ever since then, which is really nice. But then the Doppler came and I checked and heartbeat's there, strong, she's good, I can feel her moving around. The one silver lining is I was not supposed to get another ultrasound after the 20-week one. They usually don't, but I think because of everything that happened, they're probably going to schedule me for another ultrasound, which I'm kind of excited about, just to make sure that everything's still growing normal. So I guess that's kind of a silver lining that I might get another ultrasound out of the deal. So I'm all for that. How has it affected your mental state? It definitely caused me to want to slow down, which I think I need anyway. I was doing way too much in December. I'm sure that wore down my immune system even more and probably made me kind of more susceptible to getting sick, but who knows, I probably would have gotten sick regardless with this. It helped put my brain back into the mindset of like, I need to take care of me and my family and my health before anything else. It helped me not be so stressed about YouTube and making sure videos were going out because my top priority and concern was making sure we were good and healthy. In the beginning, it was definitely rough for that 1 week. Bobby and I were not in a good headspace. For obvious reasons, we were just like, this is how 2020 ends. Of course, this is how 2020 ends. That was our last 2020 week, was dealing with most likely having COVID and being sick, worrying about the baby, and just, yeah, it was not fun. I think now that we're through it, it kind of has helped my mental state. I'm still really nervous about getting it again. I know it's possible to get it again. As far as I've read, we should have antibodies now, I think a minimum of 3 months to 9 months. They said if you have symptoms, you tend to have antibodies longer, so that makes me feel a lot better about like possibly getting through my delivery and everything without having to worry about getting it. Being in contact with COVID and somehow like being a carrier and giving it to somebody else, I'm more scared of that now than me actually getting it, because now I know I had it, my body was able to handle it even though I was pregnant, which was the only thing that made me worry a bit more. It wasn't debilitating. I don't have any lingering symptoms right now. Nobody knows the long-term effects, but because I didn't have that bad of symptoms, I can't see how it would have long-term effects that were that detrimental. So if anything, I feel like I feel a little less scared, if that makes sense, but I am still the same amount of scared of passing it on to somebody whose body can't handle it as well, or even another pregnant woman going through it, even if their bodies can handle it well. Just knowing like how mentally bad it was for me for that week and like stressful. I don't want to have any other person have to go through that if they don't have to. So has Dexter noticed that something is wrong? Was wrong? He was very, very good. He literally laid with us all those days. Usually he's like grumbling to go take a walk or grumbling to go get food. Like every time we're sick, I feel like he definitely knows, and he knows to just like chill out with us. I know some people were like, I know dogs can get it. I literally looked it up and they said, I think like one dog has got, it's not like a thing. But I was of course a little nervous that he was gonna get it, but he obviously did not get it. He was fine the entire time. He literally just laid with us. I appreciated him and his company. How has it been balancing your illness on top of your job? I did it. My energy levels were not there. There was no way I was gonna come down and be my normal self for a video or even feel up to sitting here to do a video. So I didn't work. I didn't film. I didn't stream. I just told everybody, hey, I have COVID. I will not be around until I am feeling better. Making sure I get better is the most important thing. Have people blamed you for getting COVID? No, we haven't had anybody blame us. I think mainly because everybody knew that we were taking it seriously. Just like I wouldn't blame anybody I was with for giving. The only time I think I would blame somebody is if they were legitimately sick and then decided to still leave the house and be like, oh, it's fine, I'll just be around other people. Like, then I'd be pretty pissed that we had it. But if somebody was asymptomatic, had no idea, thought they were doing everything right, like you can't be mad. And then these two were kind of similar. Honestly, how did you deal with that horrible amount of stress? And how did you relieve stress when you found out that you had COVID? Like I said, I think because we got the test after we had started feeling better. I think that was a good stress relief, and that we didn't get the results right while we were going through it. I think just knowing in my brain that like stress is only gonna make your symptoms worse. It's gonna make your immune system not work as well. Bobby and I were really good at like distracting ourselves with things. So I was playing a lot of Nintendo Switch. We watched a lot of different, like we watched some movies, we watched TV shows. We're very fortunate to have so much stuff to distract us nowadays. Hot showers also were very helpful and nice during it. Petting Dexter was a good one. Are you considering getting the COVID vaccine? 100%. Right now, it is not recommended for pregnant women. I think some pregnant women have gotten it if they are in the healthcare industry, but as of now, they're not recommending it for pregnant women that don't have as high of a risk of contracting it. Either way, I probably would be a little nervous to get it while I'm pregnant just because it's so new. But as soon as I'm allowed to get it after having the baby, I'm gonna get it. If I wasn't pregnant, I'd be like wanting to get it as soon as I possibly can. I think the risks of getting COVID and giving COVID to other people far outweigh the risks of the vaccine. Lastly, what do you think it will be like giving birth with COVID-19, and who will be in the room? Just because you have COVID doesn't mean you forever have it. I don't know if you mean just like the world in general having COVID, what it'll be like. We'll be tested when we go in for the delivery. Hopefully, we won't have contracted it again somehow. Oh my God, I can't even like fathom if that were to happen around the birth, but that's why we're gonna try and like quarantine and isolate as much as we can before the birth, just to be sure. At least in my state, you can have one support person with you and they can't leave the hospital once they come. So like usually the father can come and go. So like if the father needs to go home and like walk the dog, grab stuff and come back, get food, come back. Once you're in now, you're stuck there. So we'll probably have my mom watching Dexter while we're there because we'll probably be there a couple days, and it'll probably just be Bobby and I. I don't know what it's like to give birth not in COVID, so there's nothing for me to compare it to, so it might be fine. I don't know. Maybe it'll be more relaxing because it'll just be the two of us and nobody will be coming in and out to like visit and ask how I don't know. It'll give us time to just bond as our own family before we start like letting other people in our family see the baby and things. So, but because it's not till May, I'm hoping by then most of the hospital staff will have their vaccines. A lot of other people will have their vaccines, and maybe things will be a little bit, I don't know, looser for regulations and things. So this video is probably gonna be way longer than I had anticipated. I didn't realize how many different questions I was gonna get, but yeah, hopefully this was helpful for somebody. I really wanted to put it out, especially if you were either worried about what it was like, if you went through it. I have found that literally anytime I look up something, it's always about how to prevent getting COVID or like how long you have to quarantine. There's not much information about what it's like to actually go through it and what it's like after you go through it, what you can expect. There's a very small amount of studies, and usually they're like, we don't have enough information yet, not enough time has passed yet. So I hope that this is a better account or resource for some people, or some people who have already gone through it. They know that they're not alone, or people who are pregnant who went through it and are stressing out about it having an effect. Definitely do your research. There is a decent amount of information out there that should make you feel better. It did for me, at least. I seem to be doing fine. Obviously, I'm not going to know concrete stuff until either I get to have another ultrasound, I see my doctor Wednesday and get some info, and ultimately until the baby's born and make sure that everything's normal. But for the most part, all the evidence points to that it shouldn't be affecting the baby in any bad way, especially because I didn't have severe symptoms. And yeah, I hope I answered everybody's questions. If you have a question that I did not answer, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Subscribe if you like funny gaming content. This is not my normal content, but if you're into, yeah, gaming, funny stuff, want to see when I end up having the baby and how that goes, make sure to subscribe. Leave a like if you made it this far in the video, because bravo. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you so much again for all the love and support that me and Bobby and the little unborn baby has been receiving since I announced that we had COVID. I very much appreciate it. You guys have been awesome through this whole terrible time, and hopefully everything is good with the baby and I can officially just move on from all of the terribleness that is COVID-19. So yeah. Love you guys. There's some other videos and the subscribe button and merch popping up right now, and as always, I will see you guys soon.